Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Al Aldrich. I'm with Strategies 360, and I'm here again tonight presenting comments on behalf of Kimberly Clark. Kimberly Clark has sought a collaborative working process with the city as the city reviewed the zoning and potential uses for the former Kimberly Clark mill site on the Everett Waterfront. As we draw closer to the end of the process, Kimberly Clark wants to acknowledge and thank Mayor Stephenson, Laney McMullen, Alan Giffen, and others at the city who have been involved in the process for their strong commitment to working with Kimberly Clark collaboratively. We are pleased overall with the process and are comfortable with the preferred alternative that's before the Planning Commission tonight. There's one area where Kimberly Clark has significant differences with the preferred alternative. Not surprisingly, Kimberly Clark continues to believe that public access on the property does not fit well with the industrial area and the security and safety aspects of that area. You have heard these concerns before from Kimberly Clark as well as from the Port of Everett and the Navy. We continue to believe that providing public access at a nearby location that doesn't have these security and safety concerns, such as property at the Preston Point site further north on the shoreline, which Kimberly Clark has referred to previously, is a much better way to meet public access goals while ensuring this site is positioned to create as many good jobs as possible. Alluding to a comment made by Alan Giffen earlier, Kimberly Clark has focused on the primary piece of land and reserves the right for future comment on the much smaller pieces of land between BNSF and West Marine View Drive and the similarly small pieces on the east side of West Marine View Drive. We urge the planning process to adopt the preferred alternative as soon as possible. Adoption of this will significantly improve the ability to market the property by reducing the current uncertainty regarding rules governing the property and hasten the day that a new owner will emerge. That's when new jobs and economic development can move forward. Thank you.
Quick comments on behalf of our company and also, as Alan alluded to, Kimberly Clark. First of all, we thank Alan and his staff greatly for allowing us to offer comment and input during this whole planning process and for the current version of the sub-area plan. We think in our perfect world, I guess the sub-area plan would just adopt the M2 zone and leave it as is, but we realize that's not going to happen. So I think in our estimation, the current version is a very fair compromise. I think the uses that we're seeing in the market, for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, fit within the plan as it's currently comprised, and then in terms of the uses that are allowed and the uses that are not allowed in this current plan. We're currently working, and I guess this is very fluid because this is the way marketing goes. We're currently working with 4 I would deem viable suspects for the property, and all 4 fit well within the current iteration of the sub-area plan. So we're happy to see that. There was one other group that probably would not have fit into this use, but I didn't deem them very viable anyway, so it all worked out for the best. And lastly, I think I would piggyback on what Alan's comments were, and that is, we hope that this plan gets adopted and passed through to the City Council for final acceptance, because while it has impacted our marketing to some degree, I think what we want to do is have a very clear idea in our advertising and in our marketing materials of who we're trying to encourage to come to the site, and that way I think we will find the right user to buy the site, and it may be more than one user, but anyway, within this plan, if it's adopted, we'll have a very clear direction as to what we can and can't do on the site.
State your name and your address for the record, and please keep comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Alan. For the record, my name is CJ Ebert. My mailing address here in Everett is 2911 and a half Hewitt, Suite 1. For those of you that don't know me, I spent 16 years on that table, so I'm pretty familiar with the process, and I have to say I've got a lot of respect for what you've turned out tonight in terms of a preferred alternative. I do have one thing I'd like to talk about, and that seems to be the issue of the day, and that's public access. Over the years, I've done a fair amount of development around Everett. I was involved in Port Gardner Landing. There was significant public access that was created there. Part of that public access was created not only through private money, but it was also by the port. the port over the years had provided percentage public access off-site. And for the work that they'd done around Pier 1, South Terminal, Pier 3, was all provided public access to the north around the North Marina. Some of that work continues today along Marine View Drive. Recently, I've been involved in doing the redevelopment of the old Weyerhaeuser pulp mill site, which is at 529 Bridge, Snohomish River. For those of you that have not been down there recently, we've just created a 1,000-foot long public access trail that runs right along the Burlington Northern Santa Fe railroad tracks. It's on our fee property, and it's designed to link up to this North Point, Preston Point property. And I'll say that over the years, there have been several discussions at a fairly high level at the city to create that public access, to create a loop around North Everett. Now, when you think about economic development, community development, a public access trail is really a good thing to have. If you look at what the Burt Gilman Trail has done for portions of Seattle, it's a wonderful thing. Public access needs to be in the right spot. I think what the port has done by offsetting public access to the north and not in the deep water area has been the right thing to do. They have created the trail that is right behind the South Terminal that runs out to Pigeon Creek. That's a good piece. There's an opportunity that is right at hand to create that trail all the way around past the Geldwin property, through this North Point property, which is owned by Kimberly-Clark, to connect with the property that I'm involved in, which is the old Delta site, and carry that all the way around the Riverside Industrial Park. I would encourage that thought to be retained. I'd like to further echo concerns of the port regarding security and the Navy, where it would be wonderful to have a public access beach in Everett. I don't think this is the spot. And I would really encourage the commission to allow an opportunity to provide the ability to create any required public access off-site, and the North Point property would be an ideal location to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have submitted a written comment letter that you'll find, so I'll just quickly summarize that. But in summary, I guess first off, we'd like to echo what everyone else has said, the commissioner's leadership through this, and then also Alan and Dave and his staff for the openness that they've had and the dialogue we've been able to have. It's been most appreciated, and I think kind of lay the foundation for a good process to come to the preferred alternative, which the port finds as a viable alternative. We can work with that if as things go forward. The preferred alternative as written. We think that that plan recognizes the attributes of this site, the deep water port aspect of it, the rail access, the security interests and so forth, and can work with that, as well as recognizing the realistic economic opportunities that can come with that site as a deep water urban port. The public access as written in the preferred alternative, we think we can work with. The public access as proposed in the amendment, I think, would be problematic for the port. This is me talking, not the commissioner, since this is a new amendment, but that would be problematic from a security standpoint. As you know, the port facilities are transportation worker identification card access security facilities, and then also just general port terminal operations. Trying to move cargo around is not a good spot for public access and incompatible really with picnicking. And following along with what CJ said, public access can be had off-site, and the port is willing to talk about that. And as CJ said, we have a 2% for public access policy that we work with, and happy to sit down with Alan in the city to continue to talk about public access. We had a couple minor technical things that on the preferred alternative, for example, on the noise aspect, to make sure that it's tied to the city ordinance, and some things like that we can work through the city staff with. But again, we find the preferred alternative as written workable, But again, to reiterate, the amendment, I think, would be problematic for the port and port operations. With that, I thank you again for your time, and Alan and his staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick Cassidy.
Hi, my name is Patrick Cassidy. I live at 1213 25th Street, a eyesore. I'd like to spend some money on it, but finding out that the parking lots below it, the house has been had an unobstructed view to Kimberly Clark, but also water views for 102 years, and now I could have my first floor blocked by apartments. Those apartments, I don't know what you envision those apartments becoming. They're not going to be view apartments if you're talking about 50 to 80 foot buildings down there. They're just going to be more apartments. I don't think the city needs them. I'd like to see a lower height limit, but what I'd really like to see in those parking lots is them to remain parking lots and keep things open. You're going to put industry down there. That's going to clog that up again. It's going to make it a big cluster of buildings. It's not going to be beautiful no matter what you do. It's going to be better. But these apartment buildings leave something open. I mean, this is Waterfront. Leave something open. And you want public access down there, people going through, 25th Street, which is where I live, where the crosswalk is, passing some plain old apartment buildings that aren't going to be luxury condos because there will be no view, to get to the waterfront. It just, if there's anything you can do to stop this 2-year process of it opening up to apartments, I think it would be better. And I understand the benefits of having a huge number of units down there to the city's income and property taxes, but as we get bigger and bigger and fuller and more compacted, remember there's individuals out there too. It's not all about, it is about the greater good in some ways, but don't forget the individual. I had a little quick comment off the subject of my main concern, but I'll just say the city has the ability to do something about this. 60-mile-an-hour quarter-mile horns on trains do not belong at tended crossings. 24-hour tended crossings, we've had trains for years blowing horns that are meant for 60 miles an hour, a quarter mile away, blowing at the same standards or procedures as they would if they were at full blast, and they're only going 25 miles an hour. Noise, light, smoke, let's try and reduce it. Let's try and keep it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I live 6710 Olympic Drive in Everett. I just wanted to comment Commissioner Adams was asking about public access. I work down the waterfront, and it might not look like it right now, but I do. And one of the main concerns that we have is that space is limited, and there's a need for growth. And I appreciate and am grateful that there's some planning. This preferred alternative is being put forward. I support that, but at the same time, I think some common sense on public access needs to be thought through a little bit more clearly. With people that are needing to work, if you look at where I've been kind of guessing where you're thinking, the little notch area, hoping to have that area there, that's just a recipe for someone going to get hurt. It's because the two areas are going to be, they're going to cross paths. And so I would strongly encourage what has been presented already, that just as we've done in the past with wilderness areas and other areas where we swap, I'm sure that there's got to be a alternative that can be, a plan put together where we can work together, which I do support the idea of having public access, but in a different place where the public can get the full benefit. The water there is really not what I think what you're really looking for. I've worked with Les and the port, and I know that the port is, if they were to be able to acquire the property, whomever, we could probably find a way, I'm sure, of finding another place. CJ mentioning about the north area there where Kimberly-Clark has property, or even in the south end. I haven't heard anything mentioned about trying to tie Pigeon Creek area up into Forest Park. That area, that the port has a nice trail there. There's got to be some way to work together to make all happy here. We might not be perfectly happy, but we can at least be satisfied that we've done our best and we've met the needs to the best of our ability of everyone here in the city. We are needing to grow. We need to have places for people to go to work with family wage jobs. It's just a very important time for us down at the waterfront, and so I just want to make sure that our voice is heard, and that yeah, public access is important, but also jobs are important. So please put that into consideration when you comment about that. And
As chair, I'm going to take a little bit of executive privilege and just interject that the public access that we're talking about does not give the public actually access to the water for swimming or for boating or recreational purposes. The public access being considered at the moment is for view potential and to be able to walk and look. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the type of public access that we're considering. And that's not to take away anybody's opinions about the issue, but I want to make sure we're all considering the same thing. Okay.
I was here 2 months ago. I represent the Northwest Historic Ships Association. And 2 months ago I presented the idea that perhaps an aircraft carrier could be located as a museum ship along the waterfront property. The idea is still, I think, a viable one in light of the ideas that have been posed tonight for some waterfront access. The ship would occupy 1,065 feet, since that is the length of the ship, of waterfront area. It would draw jobs directly with ongoing maintenance and tourism, a great deal of tourism. I've talked with our local tourism boards, and they feel it's an idea worth pursuing. The group that I'm with is kind of an offshoot of another group that has attempted to save this ship, this particular ship, in Fairview, Oregon, on the Columbia River. They kind of got target fixation and decided this was where they wanted to go, but they didn't do the investigation necessary and found that the Burlington Northern Railway has a bridge that was standing in their way, and Burlington Northern wasn't willing to dismantle their bridge and disrupt their traffic to bring the ship to Fairview, Oregon. Since then, they've also had to finish phase 2 of Naval Sea Systems Command's 3-phase process to secure a capital ship of this size, or any ship, a Navy ship, for museum display. They failed in their effort, and the ship is currently been removed from donation hold from this foundation in Oregon. It is available now for a limited time if funding can be secured and site can be secured. There's a lot of ifs there. This could be an economic engine, considering the 55 acres that are there and the 900 people that were employed on this site. That's about 15 people per acre, I believe, with the ship and a small amount of acreage for parking. This could generate more than its fair share of revenue and still allow considerable area for development and additional jobs. It's been said that this is not a tourism destination, Everett, Washington. Well, I kind of beg to differ. I think it is. We are growing in that regard, and we can grow more if we can see the light and do something about it. Jobs can also be produced, as I said. Tourism generates jobs, and I think we're as big, although we may not have the population, as Portland, Oregon. Portland is starting to look at this a little more closely with the Waterfront Park in Portland. I think we can do the same thing here.
Members of the council and the planning commission, and Alan, you've taken some of my thunder away. I'm glad to hear that your idea of the public access was view. I shudder to think that anybody would want view or public access in amongst industrial property. The other issue that is also in my mind would be the security of the Navy. They get pretty nervous about, I would assume, view, but in the long run, along with what Mr. Ebert had said earlier, the trail around to Preston Point, to me, makes such a logical access to, there's some parking there, there's tidelands there, and it would be a good culmination. With that trail, there's probably public access all the way from the Snohomish River to the port property, which is a huge amount of access. My main concern, originally when I signed up, I was not aware of your definition of public access. I'll have to apologize for that, but I just could not fathom, having run a lot of heavy machinery and stuff, having anybody even inside a fence going into a plant. Thank you for your time.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate the comment at the beginning about just exactly what public access is. The question of the issue west of the site still remains a little unclear in my mind. But as I think about this, the Everett to Pacific area seems to encroach quite a bit on the Navy's prerogatives. We've heard that already. There's a question about walkability, serving downtown. I live on Broadway Avenue. I walk from Broadway to the waterfront. We're walking down Wall Street and then heading south out to Howarth Park. That's very easy. It's very walkable. So I think we're in good shape there. Howarth Park is a half-mile south of Wall Street, so it's a healthy walk. But it's not 5 miles that we have to say we're not getting access. Back to Everett Avenue, there's a rise in the current trail, sidewalks, however it wants to be defined. It does give us a viewpoint. It's not a piece of, it's not a viewpoint out the water's edge, but certainly, that's the question of the access, and I believe that's done under the Shoreline Management Act, if I'm correct. Something along that has been defined. This is not the place for dipping your toes in the water or for putting boats in the water. This is industrial land. This is not waterfront. As you look at the map, it's not really a waterfront. It's just an inlet behind something else, behind another structure, a superstructure. Again, this is industry, so let's build it to capacity. Thank you.
I pretty much like what I'm seeing here. I like the way that it's incorporated all the other proposals. And I understand everybody's concern with the off-site, on-site access. Obviously, if there's a lot of heavy industrial activity going on, it's going to be hard to actually have, safely have a place where people can go. But I think it's important that we try to make it as accessible as possible, either close by off-site or on-site if possible. I don't think that's really a big concern. My big concern is, and I'm not sure what the M2 means altogether. I noticed we listed all the worst of the worst, apparently, types of industries. And I'm very glad to see that coal export facility has been added. I wonder who added that and why. But I'm glad to see that there. I'm just concerned that what's not on this list might be something that we may not want on, that we would like to add to this list, and I'm not really sure I'm just concerned that in the future, if somebody comes up with something they want to put here, and it's not specifically on this list, but it is something that could be hazardous or against what we're trying to accomplish here, which is making it a high employment and accessible as much as can be, and good looking, something that will reflect the city that we want to build in the future. So other than that, though, I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing here. I just want to thank you. I appreciate all your hard work.
Okay, are there any other people who wish to speak? Okay. Seeing none, then I would like to close the public hearing.
I'd move to close the
Yes, I need a
public
motion.
hearing.
Second.
Thank you. So I don't know that I agree with that. If we could end up having a facility like our sewage treatment plant that sits on the east side, down at the central waterfront planning area, that would be just, I think, do exactly what we're trying to eliminate for going forward with this piece of property. And I don't understand stormwater and effluent treatment like you do. I know.
What I'm trying to not preclude is an intermittent operation to address the high storm flows in the combined sewer system that currently today overflow untreated into the inner harbor. And I don't know how many times a year overflows occur today on the west side, but it's a heck of a lot more than once.
I might offer a suggestion. If you decide to leave effluent treatment in there as a prohibited use, we could add some clarification that it would not include treatment of stormwater discharge.
I would be satisfied with that if that gets to the...
That works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, if you just want to add that to the asterisk.
I'm satisfied if that gets us around the problem while still clearly not permitting sewage treatment on the waterfront. Okay. Thank you for entertaining that. Okay. The other question that I had, Alan, you'll probably be the best person to ask too. I'm sorry. Is in the prohibition of outdoor storage, bulk storage materials. In previous iterations, it was clearly prohibited. In this preferred alternative, outdoor bulk storage can be incidentary to the manufacturing purpose and be placed on an equivalent of 50% of the building footprint that is used for that specific user. My concern is twofold, that that seems quite generous and that we would in fact be dedicating a great deal of the total acreage to outdoor storage of bulk materials or storage of machinery. And while I realize that it's important for manufacturing use, I want to get the ratio right. And I also want to ensure that we are screening with landscaping or walls adequately so that we're not giving an opportunity to have that be a major emphasis for the permitted uses that we are allowing.
That's similar to one of the standards that we have in another industrial zone. And so without having to even tweak the wheel, we just borrowed that standard from another zone that we have.
Is this other zone in a setting similar to or has the same goals for aesthetic compatibility and livability adjacent to the downtown?
No, that's the MM zone, which is a light industrial zone that we have in southwest Everett that is typically in a larger industrial area with different types of industrial zones, some heavy manufacturing, some office park zoning, and the MM is kind of a in between the heavy and the office park kind of designation.
My concern is if we arbitrarily make this number 25% or 35% or whatever, we're just kind of taking away possible uses down. And that's my concern, is we're kind of gentrifying the industrial area a little bit by what we're doing. So I don't see a problem.
Okay.
I'd also point out that there are two limitations here. One is that the base number that your 50% or whatever percentage is applied to is the footprint of the principal building. So you might have, if you had, say, one owner of the whole site with a single industrial process, they might still have 10 or 15 buildings on the site, but the principal manufacturing will probably be the largest building. The outdoor bulk storage would be limited to 50% or less of the footprint of that building, not the entire site.
Right.
So I think you've got it built in, just so for any process, they're going to have a lot of areas for maneuvering trucks and, that kind of thing that's not going to be covered by buildings. So I don't think we're going to have to face a site that's even 20% covered with bulk storage with this limitation as drafted.
Second paragraph from the bottom, in other areas of the document, when we're talking about job density per acre, we always have stated 10 employees or more per acre should result. So I'd like to add the language or more so that it is consistent with the other areas of our draft. Are there any other amendments or additions to the document? Okay. I believe we are ready to make a decision. With all of the list of improvements to our draft, would someone like to make a motion?
The resolution as amended. Second.
Okay. Kathy, would you like to call for the vote?
Commissioner Sand?
Yes.
Commissioner Chase?
Yes.
Commissioner Alders?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Commissioner Adams? Commissioner Johnson? Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Well done. Thank you for being here and adding public to public process. We really appreciate your input, all of you.
The Everett Planning Commission just finished up with its public hearing on the Central Waterfront Plan. The recommendation they're making to City Council includes water-dependent and non-water-dependent industrial uses. It also encourages public access as long as the public access does not interfere with the industrial uses. It also addresses height limits and design guidelines. At this time, Kimberly-Clark is currently looking for a buyer for the property. Next up, the City Council will consider the proposed waterfront plan.